Greetings. You're watching Simone. First Lady Dr. Jill Biden is meeting war refugees in Eastern Europe. And for the first time, she reveals what she thinks about Roe v. Wade and about that idea that women could be thrown in jail for making decisions about their own bodies. This is the thing that really has me tossing and turning at night. And the fact is that Democrats, they have actually gotten a lot done. So when are they going to start telling the voters that? I'll ask House Democratic Caucus Chair Hakeem Jeffries all about it. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Simone Sanders, and I have something to say. I want to start with Ukraine and what I learned about Dr. Jill Biden's trip to the region. Now, Dr. Biden has a lot more to say, like what she thinks about political attacks on her family. And you'll get to hear that a little later in the show. But first, more on what the First Lady is doing in Eastern Europe today. Correspondent Katie Rogers, who is traveling with the First Lady. After the break, Katie Rogers, don't you go anywhere. Coming up, you might think you know what a role reversal would mean, but do you really know? I'm going to fill you in on some of the disturbing, and I do mean disturbing, under-the-radar laws that ruling would set into motion. Plus, we are going to have more of my exclusive interview with First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. She's going to get personal. Stay with us. I wonder how you handle the very personal attacks on your family when it feels like in a political climate where there seems to be nothing off limits.
How dare they? How dare they tell a woman what she can do and cannot do with her own body?
But we are here to declare on this momentous week with one voice, Roe must go.
Imagine you do not have authority over your own body for 10 months. Imagine if that decision-making would not be taken away even if you would die in childbirth.
That was just some of the emotional reaction to the explosive leak of a draft Supreme Court opinion. Here's my take. If the leaked Supreme Court draft overturning Roe v. Wade becomes final, women and anyone else with a uterus could be fined, punished, sent to jail. And if you think I am being dramatic, a handful of states have laws ready to go that could put women or even the doctors who care for them behind bars. We've got the facts. Look at this on the screen. In South Carolina, anyone ending a pregnancy with a pill or by other means could face up to 2 years in prison and a fine of up to $1,000. In Arkansas, the penalty for performing or attempting to perform an abortion would carry up to a decade in prison or a $100,000 fine. How about in Louisiana? Anyone who performs an abortion or gives a woman medicine to do it will be subject to a $1,000 fine per procedure and up to 2 years in prison. And to top it all off, there's a bill to classify abortion as homicide. It also just passed through committee in the state legislature. So here to discuss, we've got Boston Globe columnist and co-host of the Sisters-in-Law podcast, Kimberly Atkins-Storr, Republican former congressman from Florida, my friend Carlos Curbelo, and Katie Rogers, New York Times White House reporter, is back with us. Welcome, everyone, to our first political panel. Congressman, I promised you I'd have you on the show, and I'm going to start with you. Katie Rogers, Kimberly Atkins-Storr, Carlos Curbelo, thank you all for joining me for my first political panel, and I hope you'll be back. Next, the First Lady to keep a full-time job pulls back the curtain on what it's like teaching students in one of the most turbulent environments for teachers ever. I bet you'll be surprised to hear what it's like in her classroom.
And I love that my students, treat me as Dr. B. We never mention politics. We don't talk about the White House. I never say First Lady.
Welcome back. I'm Simone Sanders, and I am elated you are here. Now, just before the First Lady took off for Eastern Europe, I had the opportunity to speak to her about some pretty heavy topics, like political attacks on her family and how she is breaking ground by keeping her job outside the White House. Take a listen. Dr. B also shared some thoughts on Mother's Day. We're going to play that tomorrow when we honor all of the moms out there and the mother figures in our lives. I have another special guest coming up, though, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. He's a member of House leadership, and we're talking about what's going on in this Congress and this week when it comes to Roe. We're also going to talk about what's happening with redistricting in New York. Plus, another don't miss for you. Check out Inspiring America, the 2022 Inspiration List, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on NBC or here on MSNBC at 10 p.m. Eastern. Democrats and Republicans both got a wake-up call this week. And who was on the other end of that line? Well, the rights of women, families, privacy, and a few other things. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said this yesterday on Deadline White House.
Sometimes it really just takes something as appalling and such an assault on privacy, on precedent, on the Constitution, on personal liberty, on the rights of women and families, really, in a country, that bring people's focus into this is what your vote means in the election and how it affects the courts and how it affects you.
Now, the speaker went on to call that leaked Supreme Court opinion about Roe, quote, radical. And that echoes fellow Democratic leaders, including our next guest, Brooklyn's own Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who reps New York's 8th Congressional District. Congressman, thank you for joining me today for my first show.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be with you on this inaugural occasion. Simone Sanders is in the building. It is a wonderful thing, and I know it's going to be an amazing show and an amazing run at some point this fall.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, thank you, sir, for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Next, we'll have my very first Simone Says, because I have something to say, folks. We'll be right back. First show ends. A few things about me. You may know me from my work in politics, the presidential campaigns of Senator Bernie Sanders and President Biden, or even advising Vice President Harris. I am blessed to have had the opportunity to sit at the table where big decisions were made. I built a successful career speaking for other people, but now I have something to say. So thank you for joining me at my table here on MSNBC. You know, as a little girl growing up in North Omaha, I used to talk into a spoon or a hairbrush, pretending to be a news anchor. Donna Burns was her name. And now to sit here in the D.C. Bureau with the show named after me, it is just really a full circle moment. I am filled with gratitude. And now I want to tell you a few things about this show. I know I have a responsibility. I promise to bring you an inside look at important political stories that impact you. And I'm not just talking about here in Washington, but across our country where it's all going on. We're going to get some insight from some heavy hitters, and plus, we are going to talk culture. We want to hear what you have to say. So hit us up on all our social media handles at Simone MSNBC. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't miss Simone tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. We are debuting the Culture Corner, where we're going to talk to our culture critics about attacks on comedians like Dave Chappelle and so much more. Thank you very much for today. Stay right here. Reverend Al Sharpton is next.